Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 4, Text number 19. Sakadachid atamano Bhagavan Rishabho Brahmavartagato Brahmarshi Ṛṣabhadeva Prajanam Nishamayantinam Atmajan Avahitatmanah Prashraya Pranaya Bhara Suyantrithan Apyupashikshayan iti hovacha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Once while touring the world, Lord Rishabhadeva, the Supreme Lord, reached a place known as Brahmavarta. There was a great conference of learned Brahmanas at that place, and all the king's sons attentively heard the instructions of the Brahmanas there. At that assembly, within the hearing of the citizens, Rishabhadeva instructed his sons, although they were already well behaved, devoted, and qualified. He instructed them so that in the future they could rule the world very perfectly. Thus he spoke as follows. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The instructions of Lord Rishabhadeva to his sons are very valuable if one wants to live peacefully within this world, which is full of miseries. In the next chapter, Lord Rishabhadeva gives his sons these valuable instructions. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 5th canto, 4th chapter of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled The Characteristics of Rishabhadeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we are reading in this chapter, the last verse of this chapter, about Rishabhadeva, and in the next chapter will be the teachings of Rishabhadeva to his sons. So we have been reading how Rishabhadeva ruled this planet, and so here in today's verse it describes, once while touring the world, Sakadachit atamanaha. So as a king, he was traveling around the kingdom, and his kingdom was the whole world. So once while touring the world, Bhagavan Rishabhaha Brahmavartha Gataha. He came to a place known as Brahmavarta. And Prabhupada has explained, according to some commentators on the Bhagavatam, this refers to a place in Burma. And according to some others, it refers to Kanpur. So sometimes commentators have different explanations for various reasons. So Brahmavarta Gataha, and there what did he see? Brahmarshi Ṛṣabhadeva. There was a great conference and held by Brahmarshi Pravara. They were all great sages, Brahma Rishis. They were all Brahmanas and Rishis, and they were pravara. They were foremost among the Brahmarshi, among the saintly Brahmanas. So which means very qualified. Very, very qualified Brahmanas have all gathered there, and there is a sabhayam, there's a conference going on, there's a meeting going on. And in that place, prajanam nishamayantinam. It was not only a place where the Brahmanas were, foremost Brahmanas were having a meeting. It was a closed door meeting. Nobody else can hear. It's confidential. Only for the Brahmanas. No. Prajanam, even the common people were also allowed to hear. So they were also present. Prajanam, nishamayantinam. They were hearing, or within the hearing of the prajas. Prajanam nishamayantinam atmajan. And Rishabhadeva, when he was touring the world, was he touring alone? No, he had taken his sons also. So, Atmajan with his sons, avahitatmanaha, and his sons who were attentive to hear. They were eager to hear. So, these sons were hearing, were also wanting to hear from the Brahmanas, Brahmarshi Pravara Sabhayam, in that meeting, what they were saying. And more about the sons, they were prashraya. They were of good behavior. Prashraya, very well behaved, very refined, very civilized. So these are all the indications of the word prashraya. Pranaya bhara. Prashraya, pranaya bhara. And they were full of devotion. Very sincere, feeling, very devoted. Pranaya bhara. Prashraya, pranaya bhara. Suyantrithan. Yantrithan. Yantra means a machine. Suyantrithan means very, here Prabhupada has used the word well controlled. Senses are regulated, senses of mind are well controlled. Their behavior, their activities are well controlled. In one other explanation, another lecture, Prabhupada says, which we read during the morning Mangalarati reading, if you remember, Prabhupada commenting on the word suyantritaha. The sadhakas, it's very appropriate for us. Our behavior must be suyantritaha, like a clockwork. In English there is an expression like a clockwork, very systematic. So in the same way, in our sadhana, we should be very systematic. Rising early in the morning, coming for Mangalarati, chanting our rounds, reading from the Shastra, hearing from the Shastra, eating in a regulated way, doing service in a very regulated manner. So, suyantritaha, not randomly. Today I feel good, I'll come for Mangalarati. Tomorrow I don't feel good, it's okay, I'll do something else. No, Actually, you see our lives in Krishna consciousness movement, Srila Prabhupada has made it suyantritaha. What Bhagavatam is describing. At 4:30 in the morning, what are the devotees in the temple doing? We all know where we are. Right? At 5:30 in the morning, what are we all doing? You can very, like a clockwork, we are all chanting. At 9:30 in the morning, where are we? What are we doing? We are all in the Prasadam hall. So, suyantritaha, very regulated. Lives are very regulated. So, the sons of Rishabhadeva, they were suyantritan, very well regulated, controlled life. And to such sons, and this prashraya, pranaya, suyantritan, they were all, in what measure? Bhara means full of, in abundance. Pranaya bhara, their devotion was in abundance. Their good behavior was in abundance. In the sense, very, very well behaved, very qualified. The sons were not ordinary sons. They were all very qualified. We read how the foremost son was Bharata, and then there were other Nava Yogendras, and then there were other 90 sons who were also very qualified Kshatriyas, all very qualified. Some Brahmanas, some Mahabhagavatas, and some Kshatriyas, all kinds of sons Rishabhadeva had. So it's not caste system. Father is one and all children will be the same. No, it's guna karma vibhagashaha. So, but all of them were spiritually very qualified. Once while touring the world, kadachit atamanaha, Lord Rishabhadeva, Bhagavan Rishabhaha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, reached a place known as Brahmavartha Gataha. There was a great conference of learned Brahmanas at that place, Brahmarshi Pravara Sabhayam. And all the king's sons attentively heard the instructions of the Brahmanas there. Atmajan avahita atmanaha. At that assembly, within the hearing of the citizens, Prajanam Nishamayantinam, Rishabhadeva instructed his sons, Upashikshayan, although they were already very well behaved, Prashraya, devoted, Pranaya, and qualified, Pranaya Bhara Suyantritan. He instructed them, Upashikshayan, so that in the future they could rule the world very perfectly. Thus he spoke as follows, Iti Uvacha. And Srila Prabhupada writes very nicely in the purport, the instructions of Lord Rishabhadeva to his sons are very valuable. If one wants to live peacefully within this world, which is full of miseries. Prabhupada writes similarly about Parikshit and Shukadev Goswami. Parikshit asked a question to Shukadev Goswami. What is the duty of a person about to die? And that question is for all of us. Not only that Parikshit was about to die, all of us are about to die. We don't know when. Maybe 7 days, maybe 7 years, maybe 50 years, we don't know, 100 years, some of you young people. But we are about to die. So in other words, the conversation between Parikshit and Shukadev Goswami is relevant for all of us. In the same way, who wants to live peacefully in this world which is full of miseries? All of us will want to do that. Right? This world is full of miseries and we all want to live peacefully. In other words, these are very, very relevant discussions. These are very relevant instructions. And that's how this chapter ends. And the next chapter begins with Lord Rishabhadeva's teachings to his sons. So they're very valuable instructions. Prabhupada is promising that by hearing these instructions, we can live very peacefully, even in the midst of the miseries of this world. So here we see Srimad-Bhagavatam. It is very special. even among the Vedic literatures. That is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Puranam, Amala Puranam. This is a spotless Purana, blemishless Purana. Blemishless in the sense, sometimes Puranas describe worship of the devatas with an intent to acquire material benefits in this material world and such things. Bhagavatam very clearly wants to distinguish that. So, dharma projita kaitavotram paramo nirmatsaranam satham vedyam vastavamatra vastu shivadham tapatrayon unmoolanam. So Srimad-Bhagavatam's standard is very high. It does not encourage any kaitava dharma. Kaitava dharma is a dharma, a certain religious practice recommended with an intent to give some material benefits. So to induce the followers with some material benefits so that they will adhere, they will follow those regulations, so that they will follow those practices, and to induce them with some material benefits. So Bhagavatam is not trying to induce the readers with some material benefits. It is for those who are not after material benefits, who have realized that all material benefits are antavattu phalam tesham tad bhavati alpamedasam. Krishna very clearly says those who are after antavat phalam, phala which ends after a certain time, they are alpamedasam, they are not very intelligent. So this Bhagavatam is meant for, has instructions, has information for those who are already beyond such material benefits. And hence it says, dharma projita kaitavotram paramo nirmatsaranam satham. Nirmatsaranam satham. And how does Prabhupada translate the words nirmatsaranam satham? 100% pure in the heart. Very high qualifications. Srimad-Bhagavatam can be properly understood and appreciated by those who are 100% pure in the heart. Also, by reading Bhagavatam, by those who are not 100% pure in the heart, can become 100% pure in the heart. Bhagavatam has that potency, spiritual potency, to bring about that purification in the hearts of sadhakas like us. So, Bhagavatam, Vedavyasa is compiling all such discussions that are happening among very exalted people. You see? And that's why here it is said, Brahmarshi Ṛṣabhadeva. You see, a discussion happens according to the level of understanding and spiritual, according to the level of enlightenment of the people. Say for instance, there is a meeting of Auto Drivers Association of Bangalore City. You can imagine what kind of discussion they will be having. Some problems they are having. Because they are all auto drivers after all. They are discussing their problems. Some parking problem, how to increase the fare. That's the kind of discussion they'll be having. Let's say all the professors of Indian Institute of Science are going and meeting and they're having a discussion. So you can imagine the quality of discussion of that sabha. So according to the constituents of the sabha, the quality of discussion will be varying. So here we can see Brahmarshi Ṛṣabhadeva. Brahmarshi means They are very, very advanced, spiritually advanced people. And then it says, Brahmarshi Pravarasabhayam. They are foremost among the Brahmarshis. And they are all discussing. And where are they discussing? In a place called Brahmavartha. Brahmavartha is a place, Prabhupada describes elsewhere in the Vedic literatures, it is described. A place where the Supreme Personality of Godhead is recognized and everyone is eager to serve and satisfy the Supreme Lord. That place is called Brahmavartha. Bharatvarsha was known as Brahmavartha. Sometimes Brahmavartha refers to Bharat. Sometimes it refers to some parts of the Bharat. So anyway, it means a place of advanced people. People who are advanced in their thinking. And when Prabhupada or when the Vedic literatures talk about advancement in thinking, it means not just thinking about eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Because that's not considered advanced. Animals do that. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending is the activity of the animals. So even humans have to do that out of necessity. So a great deal of discussion about that is not considered very advanced. Something beyond the basic necessities of human life, and that's known as Brahma Jignasa. So these people, Brahmarshi Pravarasabhayam, and so they were discussing, which means the topic of discussion was something, an exalted topic. So it's not an ordinary topic. And Vyasadeva, when he is compiling Bhagavatam, he is compiling all such discussions which happened among exalted people. You see the discussion between Shukadeva and Parikshit. Parikshit exalted. Shukadeva Goswami, very exalted. Atmavatam Varam, foremost among the self-realized souls. That's how Bhagavatam describes Shukadeva Goswami. And who was the son of Vedavyasa himself. So very exalted person. And Parikshit also an exalted king. And the circumstances were just 7 days to die. Very little time. Now you can't be discussing so many details. You have to come to the essence. Because just 7 days left. What is the essence? And that's what Bhagavatam is promising. The essence of all Vedic literatures, Vedic wisdom will be presented. And then the sages of Naimisharanya, Rasagnanam Swadu Swadu Pade Pade, Srimad-Bhagavatam describes that they were all very elevated sages. They were all understanding Rasa-tattva. They understand Rasa-tattva. They were very exalted people. And among them, there is a discussion going on. And they place 6 questions before Suta Goswami. Suta Goswami was one of the members of the audience of Parikshit and Shukadev. Shukadev Goswami and Parikshit conversation. So he had heard that conversation. So let's hear from him. So again you see all conversations happening between exalted people. And here Brahmarshi Pravarasabhayam. In that conference, in that meeting of Brahmarshi Pravara, what is it that Rishabhadeva is going to tell? Rishabhadeva appears there. He is the emperor. Naturally he is respected. But he is not just an emperor. He is the Lord. Bhagavan Rishabha. He is the Supreme Lord himself. So you can imagine when the Supreme Lord enters a sabha, how it will be. It's like sun rising in the sky. Brilliant. And so naturally everybody is eager to hear. So that is why Srimad-Bhagavatam is full of such valuable instructions, because these discussions were happening among very, very elevated people. And it's also interesting, we see here, Srila Prabhupada comments about this. In today's world, if you want to get educated, big universities offer big education, and then you have to pay a very high fee. Right? Of course, things are changing, maybe you may say, now with technology. But generally speaking, you have to go and pay a high sum and to get educated to receive some very high level education. But here you see, prajanam nishamayantinam. So this also completely devastates the theory of caste system. It's not that the Brahmanas had that elevated knowledge and they kept it for themselves. These are all fallen Brahmanas of Kali Yuga who did that. They wanted to exploit the rest of the society. But that was not the original Vedic system. In the original Vedic system, Brahmarshi Pravara Sabhayam, even Prajanam, Praja was also allowed. Common people were also allowed, provided you are interested. And even they could hear, and even they could benefit. Very elevated discussion going on. But even common people were allowed to hear. And if they also take it seriously, even they can advance. It's not that it's exclusive, it's closed door. No, Shudras cannot come here. It's only Brahmana meeting. No, it was not like that. Anyone can hear and can receive the benefit. That was the kind of discussions. That was the spirit. So, this spiritual knowledge was not kept exclusive. These are all aberrations in the Indian civilization. And so modern day people make a big issue. Indians in the Western countries or even in India many times. When you talk about India, ancient India, what comes to their mind is, caste system and exploitation of people. Yeah, we're not denying that it didn't happen. It must have happened. And it must have happened for many centuries. But that's not the pure standard of the Vedic culture. So, the pure standard of the Vedic culture, what we read here is that Brahmarshi Pravara Sabhayam and even Prajanam Nishamayantinam, even they were allowed to hear and they were allowed to advance. And here, the verse is saying that in such an audience, Rishabhadeva began to speak. And he began to speak to the Brahmanas, and he began to speak to the sons, his own sons, and some of the qualifications of the sons are described here. Very exalted sons. Avahitatmanaha. They were eager to hear. This is the beginning of understanding transcendental matter. That's why Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Archanam, and so on. It begins with hearing. That is the process of receiving transcendental knowledge. Krishna is described as Achintya in the Vedic literatures. Even the soul is described as Achintya. What does this mean, Achintya? We cannot conceive, inconceivable. Prabhupada used the word inconceivable. Then why are we struggling to conceive? Why are we trying to understand? If Krishna is ununderstandable, the soul is ununderstandable, we have already set ourselves for an impossible task. What are we doing this? Why are we doing this? No, it is inconceivable, Achintya, cannot understand, means by our own effort, we cannot understand. By unaided reasoning, without any revelation, without any help of the Shastras, without the knowledge given by the Shastras, by the great Acharyas, by ourselves, we will not know. We cannot know Krishna. So that's why you see in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, how does 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita begin? It's very interesting. We will miss these things out sometimes if we don't read carefully. You see what happens, it's very nice how the 6th chapter ends where Krishna sets up a hierarchy. What is Krishna, 6th chapter describing? Krishna is describing dhyana yoga. Going to a solitary place, sitting on an asana which is not too high, which is not too low, focusing your concentration on the tip of the nose and controlling your senses and so on. So which is actually part of the Ashtanga yoga, right? Dhyana and Ashtanga yoga. And by describing all this, and then Arjuna asks, oh, this process I don't think I can practice. My mind is very disturbed. And Krishna assures him, no, by certain practice you can control the mind. And then Arjuna again asks the question, what if we don't succeed? Then Krishna assures him, no, even if you don't succeed, you are always guaranteed. After saying all these things, Krishna towards the end begins to conclude, and he says, Tapasvibhyo adhiko yogi, gnanibhyopi mato adhikaha, karmibhyaschadhiko yogi, tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. Krishna puts yogi at a high level, and he says, this yogi is better than a tapasvi. Tapasvibhyo adhiko yogi. Gnanibhyo pi mato adhikaha. A yogi is higher than a jnani. So Krishna has put yogi higher than a tapasvi, higher than a jnani. And then Krishna says, karmibhyaschadhiko yogi is better than a karmi. We all talk in ISKCON, right? Karmis. It's a famous word. Oh, they're all karmis. So karmi means somebody who is attached to performing regulated karma. It's actually varnashrama. They want to practice the varnashrama system and have a good life now and have good karma for future lives. So that is karmi. They are pious people. Karmis are God-fearing people. They are God-worshipping people. They give us a lot of donations. We should be thankful to them. And so they are good people. But they have a lot of material desires in this world. So that's how karmis are. So Krishna has placed yogis above all these. Tapasvi, jnani, karmi, higher than all of them, yogi. Tasmad yogi bhava Arjuna. And so under all circumstances, be a yogi. This is how Krishna is concluding the importance of the position of a yogi. Because yogi is trying to link up with God. That's the advantage. Yoga means, Prabhupada's great wonderful definition of yoga in the 4th chapter, the science of one's relation with the Supreme. That's yoga. So we have a relation with the Supreme, and that's not a sentiment, that's real, that's a science. Science of one's relation with the Supreme is called yoga. And yogi is somebody who is pursuing that, and hence this yogi is very, very elevated. After saying that, Krishna says, now I placed yogi above tapasvi, karmi, jnani, and this is a yogi. Yogi is higher than all of this. Next, Krishna says, among the yogis there is a hierarchy. Yoginam api sarvesham. That's the next verse. And the last verse of the 6th chapter. So among the yogis, there is one yogi which he is considered to be the highest yogi. So already yogis are higher than tapasvi, jnani, karmi. And now among the yogis, who is that? The highest yogi? Yoginam api sarvesham matgatena antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam. Mam shraddhavan bhajate. He worships me with great faith. He is abiding in me. He is always surrendered to me. Antaratmanaha, in the core of his heart. This is the core of his heart. In the core of his heart, he is so devoted to me. Such a yogi, he is the highest. Yuktatamo mataha. So this is how the 6th chapter ends. And according to one analysis, Prabhupada does that. The 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, first 6 chapters is of one subject. The second middle 6 chapters is of another subject, and the third 6 chapters is of another subject. So the first 6 chapters has ended here. First 6 chapter discusses about soul and matter, and it discusses the various yoga system which helps us to understand the difference between the soul and the spirit soul and matter, and to understand how to connect it to the Supreme Spirit. Saying all this, it ends by saying, but those yogis who are so devoted to me, they are the highest. It ends there. Now, let's see how the 7th chapter, the very first verse, how it begins. Maya saktamana partha yogam yunjan madhashrayaha asamshayam samagram mam yathagnāsyasi tatshrunu. If a yogi is higher than all these other people, jnanis, enlightened people, tapasvis, austere people, karmis who are very highly regulated in their lives, and among yogis, those who are so devoted to me, he is considered to be the highest yogi. So, yogi is higher than all these people, and among the yogis, they are the one who is so devoted to me, he is considered the highest of the yogis. Then you must ask one natural question. Who is this person Krishna, who even the yogis, who are elevated people, they, the most elevated yogis, are so utterly devoted to him? Who is this Krishna? That I will tell you now. And that's how Krishna is saying. Maya saktamana partha yogam yunjan madhashrayaha. With mind attached to me, that's what the highest yogis do. Maya saktamana partha. Mind attached to me. Yogam yunjan madhashraya. And they are practicing yoga. Yogam yunjan. Under my shelter. By doing that, asamshayam samagram mam yatha gnasyasi tachrunu. Mam gnasyasi. You will understand me. So 7th chapter onwards, it's about understanding Krishna. So if Krishna is ununderstandable, unapproachable, inconceivable, then why is Krishna describing? No, he is knowable. But you must know the process, and the process is Tat Shrunu. You must hear. We must receive this knowledge. Then we can understand. And Krishna is promising, if you hear this knowledge, you will understand me partly. No, samagram gnasyasi. You will understand me in full. And okay, I'll understand in full, but still I'll be full of doubt or here and there. No, asamshayam samagram mam gnasyasi tachrunu. See the words that Krishna is using? So now hear, O son of Pritha, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full. You can know me in full, free from doubt. So 7th chapter is about knowing Krishna. If you see this 7th chapter, Krishna is describing how you can know me. What are the benefits of knowing me? And so on. So like this, the process of understanding transcendental subject matter and the highest object of transcendental knowledge, Krishna, is by hearing. And that hearing opportunity was always available to everyone. And here in this great assembly of Brahmarshi Pravara Sabhayam, Rishabhadeva is going to describe some teachings to his sons and to the Brahmanas, Brahmarshi Pravara Sabha, and even which is also heard by common people. And So those instructions are very special. So we will see that from the next class. Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.